Who would be a Wolves fan, eh?
On goes Bull. People might yet win it here for Wolves. Flash in the shot. What a goal!
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Wolves Fancast. Matt here alongside Stu, Ed, and Josh. Good evening, gentlemen. Are we all well?
As well as can be.
Yeah.
Considering I'm apparently black, yeah, that's not too bad. I don't know what's happened to my camera.
You have frozen on mine. Let me boot you out. It's technical issues straight away on the off. Let me get you back in. Thank you everybody for joining us live and in Technicolor. Firstly, thank you to everybody listening alongside. Thank you very much to the Sports Social Podcast Network and to the FC Quiz app as well for your support. We are here, of course, to discuss the inevitable draw between Wolves and Nottingham Forest at the historic City Ground. Stu, remind the listeners and watchers at home what is as historic as the historic City Ground.
The world famous City Ground is the that's what the announcer said. He said, "Welcome to the world famous City Ground." And I mean, I laughed. I mean, I could see Dan and Gav were there just out of my eye line. Unreal. I mean, we know that Forest love themselves, but come on, man, come on, tone it down a little bit. The one I will give them credit that the safe standing barriers have meant that them seats in that corner of the away end have now been taken out 30 years after they were put in, but they're taken out now. There's a little barrier. There's nothing world famous about it. It's a shithole. It is what it is.
Fair. Well, we're going to talk about the game, of course. What we really want to hear from this evening is from you people, good people listening along, whether that be on Facebook, Twitter or YouTube. Get your comments into the chat. We'll go through many of them as possible and try and get you involved in the action as much as physically possible. We're going to discuss it all today. Formations, form, goals, set piece specialists, got it all. So a lot to go through this evening or whenever you're listening to this podcast. As I mentioned, just want to thank you, FC Quiz app, and also the official Fancast T-Mill stores. If you want to wear some Fancast merch and show yourself off proudly in the street as a Fancastian, then go on to the store this weekend. Believe there is free UK shipping up till midnight as well, so you get save a few quid. So going into this game, Stu, first and foremost, post Burnley, 2-0 win, Dawson back. Before we look at the lineup, what did you think was going to happen on paper before you went into the game, before you saw the team sheets?
No, I thought it would be 1-1. I said on the transfer show, I thought from his comments that he made that we'd go back to what we know. I know that other people have said, "Oh, why would we do this? Why would we go back? We spent 3 months training in the back four. Clearly didn't work, did it? We haven't got the personnel for it. It was a nice idea while it lasted. I thought all along that he'd go back to what we knew, then the kind of hybrid back 4-5, because it worked. I don't know what the whole clamour for change it was in the first place. So when the lineup came out and it was exactly what I thought it would be, I wasn't surprised. Dawson played well, like we talked about on Friday. I thought Dawson played well on Wednesday. Yes, it was against Burnley, but still, he deserved to come back in. But yeah, I was almost reassured more than anything else when I saw that lineup come out, and I thought, yeah, okay. It's like putting up, if I wore slippers, it'd be like putting them on.
I dare think what goes on those horrible trotters of yours, Stu, but I'm not going to ask. Josh,
we're not a foot fetish fancast, are we? So let's keep feet out of the conversation.
Listen, whatever goes into the ad roll is little targeted ads. So if you get them, you're one of those people out there. Josh, looking at the lineup, then obviously Johnstone comes straight in off the back of a transfer earlier in the week. And then the rest of the lineup kind of, writes itself. Dawson comes in, of course, to shore up at the back. When you saw that lineup, what were your initial thoughts? And were you surprised that Johnstone was getting minutes straight away? Or did the more like the rumour mill get going about what's happened to Sarr?
No, I think straight away you look and it was like safety first, wasn't it? We're not gonna reinvent the wheel and change 5-6 players and see what we can do. It was very safety first and bring back Dawson, which I think was an excellent choice, and obviously paid off with the match went. I think that was the perfect choice. And I'm just so glad he can still play in the back four. Johnstone coming in, not that big a surprise. I think it's pretty clear he's going to be number one. I think like that, there was a tweet the other day from the lad who works, is it for the Mirror, that Alex Rich, I think his name is, and he said it's a bit like Ramsdale and Raya, where Arteta come in, they're competing, they're not, are they? It's just Johnston is number one, Bentley will be number two, and I think if Sarr's still here, he'll just float around well. I don't see him getting many minutes.
Yeah, I think you're probably right there. Something, it seems like it's been in the works, whether that be something to do with homegrown players or X, Y, and Z. Johnson coming in immediately, Ed, is something of a statement, isn't it, of intent from Gary ONeil about what the future looks like in the current 11. His comments at the end of the game kind of contradict that, but reading in between the lines, that's what it looks like, that Johnson is the number one goalkeeper for Wolves going forward.
Yeah, I think it has to be, doesn't it? I think, like Josh just said, Arteta, when he brought in Raya, I think he played Ramsdale for one game, did he? And then all of a sudden it was, he can't play the next game. And then he's never played a game since. And now he's going to get relegated for his, third time in his career or whatever, when he goes to, now he's gone to Southampton. Johnston was clearly, we've pursued him for a while. We got him in earlier than we did everyone else for the transfer deadline. It was all in mind to have him play yesterday and stop the rot and pick up at least a point. That must be what it is. And he just must fit the bill.
Well, listen, Stu, as a Sarr apologist, what did you make of an immediate swap of the guard there before Sarr coming out of the lineup and Johnstone going in?
I mean, there was no way on earth Sarr could have played that game. I mean, what his head had already gone 2 weeks ago at Arsenal. You could see that he wasn't the same. Which when you've had your talk of your position being taken by someone else for the entire summer, you're not going to be fully concentrated when you're not fully concentrated the best of times anyway. It's one of them things. We've talked about it. I didn't think there was a chance in hell that he could have played. And like the talk was Bentley that was going to start, and you think you can make a case for that because he knows the club. But Stan Johnson, he's had 1 day worth of training with him. He kind of had to go in. Like Josh said there, and we've said it, the Raya situation, it's exactly the same thing. You've got a guy there who's clearly coming in to be a number one. If he's there, if he's fit, why not throw him in? It's just one of these things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, fair. I think everyone made valid points there. Dean in the chat as well. The Portuguese window open until tomorrow. Wouldn't be surprised by a move. Saudi was being talked about for a long time as well, wasn't it? For long before Sam Johnson had ever reached the rumour mill, really. We'll come back on to Andre later as a substitute. We'll talk a little bit about cameos and the substitutes earlier in the game. But as the game started, Aït-Nouri had a golden chance on goal and fluffed his lines, unfortunately, to make it 1-0 to Wolves. Josh, from your point of view, is this just one of those things? He's a player that is going to create chances and will miss chances. He's not, he's not an out-and-out striker, so this is just one of those things. Or were you really miffed that we didn't stop that one away?
I think you summed it up perfect there. When you think about it, he's like a full-back wing-back, so he's not going to be in them natural positions normally. It's one of them, like I've seen a lot of people go, oh, he should have shot first time, but you know what would have happened? He'd have shot first time, spooned it wide, and people have gone, well, he had a chance to take a touch and, and try and slot it past the keeper. But I like him in that high role. I think that's much better for him. It'll be, look at the run he made against Chelsea for the assist, the run against Burnley where the keeper made the save. You can't be wasting that at left back. In a back four as well, you've got to get that further up the pitch. And I think he's going to get, he's going to score he'll score some goals for us this season. He did last season. When we had all our star players there, he was like our number one goal scorer. Mm-hmm. So I'm so much happier to see him further up the pitch because it's just less of a liability at the back. And then you got the chances of goals and fun in attack with him.
There is an element of that, isn't there? In that, Ed, from your point of view, even if he's missing chances like that, he's causing problems for opposition. He's got a player having to pull out of position to mark, or he's causing the defenders of other team anxiety. He's an asset to have in an attacking sense. And then if he can be kept a little bit away from the defensive side of it, it plays into his strengths. So would you have him in that kind of position going forward?
I think that's the only position we can put him in, to be honest. He's punk, isn't he? For me, he's like on the field, he's sort of the complete opposite to what he is off the field, where he's shy and retiring. On the field, he'll take a touch. You know, he took it round the keeper yesterday, kind of, and then decided, I'm not going to put it in right now. You know, I just think he's a bit punk like that. I think he'll just do it whenever he feels like it. We have to play him in that role because we've seen in the first 2 games playing as a out and out number 3 left back. He can't do it going backwards, and it's the liability so stark maybe because Totti can't cover in the same way in a centre back pairing. So we need that extra comfort blanket that we have. But he's such an asset going forward, and he's wanted by bigger teams for a reason. It's because he's so good going that way that we have to. He's one of the players that I feel we have to make fit in this system. I think we have to make him fit in this system because he's an X factor, and he's an X factor from a strange position.
Mm-hmm. Stu, I'll let you come up with the pun related to X Factor because I know you would have watched that garbage a lot more than me.
I watched a lot of it, not all of it.
It surprises me none. But for all of the good things that happen, the yin and yang, as I mentioned last week, has to come around, and another set piece horror show for Wolves where they concede, and it's that man, isn't it? Wood makes it 1-0, as we've got on a still on the screen for those listening at home. Q Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. It went wild for Johnson's involvement in this goal. It was very much you get what you wish for and all of those kind of things. Stu, when that goal went in, we'll talk about the defensive marking and set piece coaches and that in a moment. But when that goal went in, and Johnson kind of dove in slow motion, it felt like. What were your thoughts? What was going through your head at that point?
Exactly that. I mean, there's no point me saying it. Is that we said it on Friday? He's a keeper who doesn't save shots that he should save. But then you look what happened later on, and he's redeemed himself. For this one, I think, okay, wherever. You shouldn't be leaving Chris Wood free in the first place. That's error number 1. Error number 2, you're expecting a keeper who's kind of been roughed up a little bit on his line, which is fair game. And he hasn't played really any pre-season games. He hasn't been a first teamer for a while because of what happened at Palace. So it was early in the game. I'd give him a pass for that because of the extenuating circumstances of what's happened. He's new in the team anyway. He's had 1 training session with them. Yeah, he's gone a bit limp-wristed with it. Shit happens. It's one of them. But the marking is more of the problem. And the fact that we've got a set-piece coach and the marking from set pieces has been worse than ever, that's where my irk is going. Because what the fuck is this guy doing? Why is he here? If he's purely on offensive set plays, then fine, whatever. But if we've got a set-piece specialist and we're worse than ever at set-pieces, then there's where your finger's been pointing, not Sam Johnson.
Well, it feels like that, Josh, doesn't it, at the moment, that out of nowhere, a set piece. And I remember Price in the group chat for Fancast put on a stat that, like, from corners and set pieces, the turnaround, the actual percentage of chances that are created as actual goals is super low, like really low. Like when the ball goes out for a corner, everyone cheers and everyone goes wild, but generally speaking, they don't go in. Yeah. But Wolves are the exception to the rule here, and we've got a set piece specialist in, and Gary ONeil must see this as a concern because it's not even a case of it's really great attacking play from whichever team has scored, Chelsea or Forest. It just seems like it's grassroots stuff, not marking a man at the back post 2 games in a row in the league.
What's going on? Like 2 games running, that's the opposing number 9 has been left free at the back post. Like why the hell we're not doing? Obviously, the big question is why we're not picking them up. But like, did Chelsea look into it in the first game and go, oh, there's a weakness off set pieces? Second game, running Forest had done. What's going on? Why are you leaving Chris Wood of all people as well? Like, he could that shot could have gone 20 yards off target and it still fucking found the net because you know what Chris Wood's like. He always scores against us. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's just so frustrating. And then I think Sarr is a bit, Johnstone, sorry, but he's a bit limp-wristed. It's a good way to describe it. I think, does he get caught with, there's a Forest player like about to run across him, and he thinks he's going to like tap it in, you know, and he kind of takes it off the ball a little bit. But it's just, what is going on? Why would you leave such quality players like at the back post free for 2 games running? You know, you're going to concede plenty of goals doing that if you're leaving number 9 to fit the back post all season off corners.
Yeah, it's a strange one. And Ed, at that point in the game, you know, we weren't too far into the game, and again, Wolves concede the first goal. What was your initial response to that? I remember speaking to you at the Chelsea post match, and you were saying that actually you weren't feeling too downhearted by it. You thought we'd get back into it. Did you have the same positivity here, or because it's Forest, because it's Nuno, because it's Morgan Gibbs-White, were you a little bit more pessimistic about the game going forward?
No, there's still plenty of game to go at this point, and as night follows day, Chris Wood scores against us, so that was a given, you know. So I was pretty much where I was with the Chelsea game, which is there's plenty of game to go. We can't keep doing this, is what I thought, but obviously we can, like Josh has just pointed out. I think Totti's picking corn or something rather than picking corn out of his teeth and picking up men on the back post. I'm not too sure what he's doing there, and he was maybe at fault for the Chelsea goal as well, you could argue. So he played much better during the game. He did grow into the game, but I think there's definitely an issue with people picking up players on the back post, which seems to be what we were targeted at all the way through the game. But at this point, Matt, I was relatively comfortable that we'd create some chances, because I think we even saw in the Chelsea drubbing we can produce chances.
Very stoic, that very, very calm, reassuring. If I'm ever in a panic, I want to call you, Ed. The first of, I hope not many, RS Wolves gone on fraud watch. We're not quite putting the chip oil into the gongonometer, as we mentioned last week. However, the rumblings are here, and we are here to kind of gauge the fan base reaction, I suppose. Well, you were right, Ed, to not be too concerned, because mere moments later, Bellegarde's bazooka went in. That is not a euphemism. Yes, exactly.
See him in the showers.
Exactly. Let that one hang like the bad fart that it is. Bellegarde, goal outside the box as well with an absolute rocket, Stu. What were the scenes like for you immediately following the disappointment of the goal, immediately with the goal? Did you see it tee up? Were you what was it like for you inside the stadium?
I mean, the fact that they were singing "You Lost That Loving Feeling" for some bizarre reason, and then that goes in from the. I'm going to steal a quote from last season of Josh, who not you, Josh, called him Bellegarde of the Galaxy, which I love that. But nice. He was, he knows who he is. But yeah, like you said, pandemonium, and it went from everyone just being thoroughly pissed off and fed up, and there were people literally slumped over the railings as well. And you think, oh god. But it just came out of absolutely nowhere. Like you said, we didn't score one at all last season from outside the box in the league. Mm-hmm. So for him, of all people, who was fairly anonymous for the rest of the game, to come up with that, it was just the complete unknown more than anything else. And it was chaos.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was. I'm struggling to think of a goal that we've scored so quickly afterwards that felt so out of the blue as that. It just came out of nowhere, it caught commentary off guard. It caught Dave Edwards off guard on commentary through the various means and ways people were watching it. It was unbelievable. It was fantastic. And the way that that revitalized and galvanized the team going forward was great. The rest of the game after that goal kind of meandered between both teams, but following that goal, Josh, you must have felt, oh, we're back in this. We've wrote the wrongs of that goal. We've already done that bit of huff and puff that we always seem to take the rest of the game to rectify a mistake. We can go on and win this. Or, how were you feeling after the goal?
I think the thing is, once the goal goes in, especially when such a quick response, you're thinking this is a great chance to, especially you know, you've gone 1-0 down, bit of a stupid goal to concede. You've come back, bit of a wonder goal, and it's now you're thinking, oh, this is a chance to kind of get back straight into the game again. And I think a little bit of me was just like, just don't lose, boys. Just, I know it's a bit negative, but you just want to stop the rot, though. You just don't want to, like, because you could see what was going to happen if we'd have lost 3 games on the bounce and in the league and stuff like that. You could see what was going to happen. And I bet people were really unhappy when the first goal went in. You know, you can feel that the momentum starting to shift, but you know, just to get back to level, I was thinking, right, come on, let's, you know, kick on now a bit and create a couple of chances. I kept thinking that this is the game, we're going to score late. Everton away last year, I thought this is the game we're going to score late and kickstart our season. It never quite happened, but I was thankful for the point, really.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, Adam Hughes in the on the Twitter chat put this down as most enjoyable game, even if match of the day didn't show it as that. And the game wasn't without its controversy, without its talking points. And Ed, I want to come to you first and foremost because there was mention on commentary about handball decisions, and neither of them were given. You can see Larson's on the left on our screen, and you can see Dawson with Chris Wood on the right hand side of the screen. And no other decision was given. Don't think we even got an on-field VAR review, did we, Stu? I don't believe for either decision. So the rulings and guidelines have changed for this. But Ed, for either of those decisions, did you think that either of them should have been given as a penalty, or were you happy that neither were?
No, I think it's the consistency word that we're always talking about with refereeing and VAR is if you give one, you give the other. If you don't give one, you don't give the other. I think personally they're both the right decisions. Neither player is looking at the ball when it hits their hand. It's not a deliberate act. You know, they may or may not have stopped an attacking position, but I don't think there's much in those. And I think if you're giving handballs for that, we're going back to a few years ago when we're just giving away for everything. I don't think either of them should be given. And if you give the first one, you have to give the second one because that's what you'd be screaming for. But I think the right decisions were made with both. I wasn't expecting a handball decision for the Chris Wood one, and I would hope that Forest fans, in their hearts of hearts, in their world famous stadium, wouldn't be expecting one for the Strand Larsen one either. I think the fact that neither player is looking at the ball should just negate it straight away, and they never. You don't even have a cheeky look, you know, the Harry Kane cheeky look, where's your defender back into him kind of thing. That doesn't happen either with those handballs. I think they're both just accidental. Move on. Don't keep stopping the game. The game stopped enough.
Yeah. I mean, Stu, you're our IFAB specialist. You know, you read this stuff for pleasure. Where are you with this? Was it I mean, Mike Dean on Sky, he came out and said that the second one, the one against Chris Wood, was it wasn't anywhere near a penalty, but the one on Larson was, which surprised me, really. I don't want to try to take a bias out of it here, but where were you on the decisions, and are you happy if that is consistent going forward, that that's going to be for the good of the game?
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't think... I mean, the Chris Wood one, obviously, everyone just shouts handball because it's instinct, and you've got no choice. But then you look at it and you think, the ball's going away from goal. He's not even looking at it. He's stretching anyway, going the other way. Never in a million years has had a penalty. And I don't even think 2 or 3 years ago it would have been given because it was so ridiculous. The Strand Larsen one, because he's leaned with his arm, maybe at an absolute push. And I think a couple of years ago, that's definitely getting given. But the way the rules have changed this summer, it's for like I said, it's for the best. You don't want penalties given for this. That's not the point of it. It's not deliberate handball. It doesn't affect anything at all. If anything, Strand Larsen putting his arm out to kind of hit someone in the chest would have been a penalty more than a handball. But no, there was a guy with a few teeth missing, sitting behind me on the couch on the way back, and he was screaming blow murder. Oh, if this was for Arsenal or whatever. And then you saw in the Arsenal game where they had one that wasn't given because he brushed the Brighton player's hand, but that wasn't a penalty either. It's like fine, but a bit of common sense at last. No, neither were a penalty for me, and I'm kind of glad that for now, for this week, we've got a bit of common sense with where the handball rule is as of the 1st of September.
I mean, we'll talk about Gary ONeil's reactions towards the end of the pod when we talk about points. But he was not a happy chappy. He got a yellow card for his troubles. and then immediately, very sheepishly, shook the referee's hand, which felt like a bit of a bottle job, really. If you're going to be mad, like at least own it, at least go full commitment with it. But it is what it is, I suppose, from Gary ONeil. Before we go to a break, we'll want to talk about Sam Johnson in a little bit more detail, because we talked about a goal that was maybe 50% his fault, let's say, just for the sake of argument. But he really did make up for it later on, including a save from a Morgan Gibbs-White free kick that was destined to go in, and a few other saves that kept Wolves in the game. Stu, were Wolves lucky to get out of the City ground with a point? And if so, are we to thank Sam Johnstone for it, or do we think it was just run-of-the-mill saves he should be making? Where did you lie, and where did you think that point felt on the scale of kind of fairness?
The one from the free kick, you kind of see that quite often, but the one low down was superb. He had no right to getting down that. I mean, that's one of the hardest places to get down to when it's that low, when it's that quick. Reaction-wise, spot on, especially after what I said about him being slow to start the game as well, and that kind of maybe being a reason for the header from the corner going in. That one was superb for me, and yeah, a point was a great result because we were under the cosh at the end, and I think because of what's happened in the last 2 weeks, where you think, and especially against Chelsea, where we were minced up, we were absolutely battered, and you got to think in the back of their minds they're going to do everything in their power to just shut up shop and just get a point on the board before the international break. And we did that. And I was quite shocked when I got back and I got out the Faraday cage that is Nottingham, when I actually got some signal when I was on the way back, to see all the negativity, because I thought it was a great performance. Mm-hmm. Well, not a great performance, a great battling display where you come away with a point and you think, okay, this is a pain in the arse place to go. They're going to turn bigger teams than us over this season because that's what they do. They've got this kind of weird hoodoo against us anyway, and this 1-1 vortex that we can never escape from. And yet we've come off the back of a 6-2 battering, and we've got a battling point away from home. It was a great result.
Mm-hmm. I like the positivity, Stu. It almost wasn't. Chris Wood with a second, or thanks to VAR, not so. Goal was checked off for offside. The right decision. Dawson with a trailing leg nearly made that not the case. But it felt, Josh, at the time, like, Christ, it's happened again. It's this late goals, but it was offside. But again, it was kind of loose defending from a corner. Morgan Gibbs-White being allowed to just like dink that ball over as well. It was sloppy. What was your take on the disallowed goal?
It's just one of the things, isn't it? Like you say, it's poor defending off a corner again, especially like you've had your one warning, you've conceded off one. Okay, fair enough. And then you're letting, you're nearly conceding off another one. I've got to say, it's a really good finish from Chris Wood, to be fair, but you'd have been self-frustrated if that would have been you concede off 2 corners and you lose the game because of that. Been so frustrating. Like you said, just happy with the point, really. It's I think a lot of people expected, a lot of people made the point, and one of my mates made the point as well. It's like last season, Forest played Fulham, lost 5-0. They got a battling point against us at Molineux. West Ham lost 5-0 to Fulham, and they whooped us 3-0. You know what I mean? Like, I think some people were expecting a massive response, but I think in the context, it was just about getting a point on the board and not losing, stopping that rot. And especially with 1-0 down, you think, God, here we go again. And then, like I said, to get that point, battle it out, just get it over the line, we was happy with that.
Yeah. Ed, the final point on the game from a kind of backwards and forwards point of view, there wasn't kind of too much in it possession-wise, 52-48, the old Brexit vote. Expected goals, 1.04 to Wolves is 0.74. A fractional few more on target for Forest and Wolves. But in the grand scheme of things, did you think a draw was a fair result, or did you think that either team did enough to edge it?
No, I think a draw was a fair result. I think as both the lads have said, there was definitely more periods, especially in the second half, that we were maybe not holding on, but we were under the cosh, so to speak. And to get away with the point, I think with the phrase "stop the rot" has been mentioned a few times, and that is what we needed to do, because last week was such a capitulation. Last week went from everyone being a little bit positive at half time to bloody hell, we've lost 6-2. You know, we couldn't afford to go into why we've got an international break next week. I've no idea, but we're going into a week and a bit off with no points on the board, probably being thanks to Everton, probably being 19th rather than 20th. We didn't want to be there. We needed that point, and I'd imagine Palace, for example, Palace fans will be feeling the same today, picking up that point against Chelsea. You just need a point. You just need to get the ball rolling, and we needed to battle that out. And I think 1-1 was a fair result, and maybe Forest fans would argue that they had a few more of the clear cut chances, which they may or may not have done. But you know, we haven't discussed yet a couple of poor decisions from Cunha. We've had the Ait-Nouri chance we've talked about. You know, I think that you could argue either way. So we'll take a point and move on in a couple of weeks' time.
Yeah, I mean the Cunha one. We'll mention it now before the break. Stu, he's got an opportunity. He decides to shoot. He's got a player, a joker to the left of me, player to the right. And here I am stuck in the middle with Cunha. He decides to go for the shot. Wasn't the right decision. And that was the chance to kind of get Wolves ahead there. Were you frustrated at that? Is it the kind of thing that you have to accept from a creative player and the man, you know, for Wolves, that he's hungry and wants to score? Or is it one of those where you're a professional, you've got players around you, it's a team effort? Where do you lie with that Cunha chance?
I think it's about being up to speed. You know, we had one on the opening day against Arsenal where you think if he was in form and he hadn't just come back from a bit of an injury pre-season, he would have buried that chance at Arsenal. Same again there. I think he was just so desperate to get off the mark himself properly, rather than just in a battering like against Chelsea. And you think, okay, should he look up? Yeah, of course he should. But I think that kind of desire to actually score goals and this kind of this battle with Strand Larsen for the golden boot of Wolves for this season, which it seems it's going to be them two. I don't blame him for having a go, but at the same time, you just got to look up, ain't you, man? I mean, come on, it's early, so everyone gets a bit of a pass from me because it is one of them things that happens earlier in the season and you're not in your rhythm and anything like that. But if you get to November and this kind of thing's still happening, then you got to start asking questions.
Yeah, I mean, for me, that desire and hunger to score probably scores more goals than it doesn't score or doesn't assist throughout the course of a season. So, but it's frustrating in a game with such small margins. It does feel, you know, that was the chance for us to, you know, get ahead there. And who knows how the game would have panned out. What we do know is it ended with a draw, which I think on the face of it was probably a fair result. But what we're going to do now is have a very short break. When we come back, we're going to discuss candidates for man of the match for Wolves, some of Gary ONeil's comments and the deadline week signings. So you've got a very short amount of time to grab yourself a refreshment, or if you're listening at home, get a pause in, and we'll be back with you very, very shortly. That's a funny noise, isn't it, on that transition?
That's little Dan, right? Going ooh ooh, I'm sure.
Yeah. There was a story behind that. I'm pretty sure it's okay to say that the original noise got an Indonesian copyright strike. So Dan actually made that noise and put it through a filter himself. So that is little Dan.
Let's for the purpose of technology, let's go for that again. I thought that was the guy in the comments, the whale with 9 hands. I thought that was him, like coming through and talking to us through the
Finding Dory.
Yeah, excellent. Wow. Right. So, welcome back to Wolves Fancast. Matt, Stu, Ed, and Josh here to go through a few extra bits, man of the matches, what we want to talk about now. We will go on to some of the. Go from hero to zero a little later on, as we've got a few in the chat that have already popped up. But there are a couple of candidates for man of the match. The graphic for those that are listening at home, we've got Johnston, Dawson, and Lamina that are on the screen currently. Let's start with Lamina. He performed 10 tackles against Forest, the most in England's top 4 leagues this weekend. It was the second most a Wolves player has made since Opta records began, since the 2006-7 campaign, with Johnny holding the record at 11. Like Lazarus, Stu, he seemed to come into his own after what looked like a horrific injury, where everybody, Morgan Gibbs-White included, was calling for the physios to come on. It looked a painful one, but he actually really came into his own after that, oddly enough. But where did you rank Lemina's performance in this game?
I thought it was almost back to the kind of performance that we saw when he signed, where we never expected what kind of play we were getting with Lemina because of his record beforehand. But it was more all action than anything else. And that's kind of been lacking the start of this season. He hasn't been the same. And I kind of called him out a couple of weeks ago, didn't I, saying about, is the captaincy kind of taking hold of him? Is he weighing down on him too much? Is it turning the whole team chaotic? But that was Lemina at his best after that injury. I mean, it looked like his foot had fell off or something, the way everyone was reacting to it. And then you look at it on Match of the Day last night afterwards, and it was like a really innocuous, like twist of the ankle or maybe something like that. But yeah, he was great. But before that, he wasn't. So maybe it was just something that needed to spur him on. I don't know. But that was definitely the kind of performance that he put in last season, more than what we've seen so far.
Yeah, it did feel a bit more like the Lemina of old, so to speak. That makes him sound like he's a grizzled veteran in this squad. But I mean, Ed, from your point of view, where did Lemina lie in kind of the pattern of the game? Did you think that he was a standout candidate for man of the match, or because of him kind of coming into his own after the injury, it's not a little too late? It sounds like we've had another drubbing, but where did he lie for you in terms of the performance?
Yeah, I think of the three players you put up there, probably third for me. I think Ballon Dawson was back, making everyone look a little bit better in the back 4/5, whatever we want to do. But Lemina, I think Lemina in the first two games, without sort of this hybrid 3 or 2 behind him, was maybe a bit deeper than we used to. And I think yesterday, especially after that knee or ankle twist, whatever it was, yeah, all action was exactly what he was. But for me, I think Dawson was probably man of the match yesterday out of those three.
Okay, interesting. What about you, Josh? Where do you lie with Lemina? Would you say the bronze medal is probably fair out of the three, or do you rate him a little higher?
I don't know. I think like everyone's, like you said yourself, maybe it was not a little bit late, but like you say, it's a bit of he's somehow found a second wind after nearly having his foot come off, as Stu said. But I look and I think the big thing for me out of yesterday's match is we've established that Dawson can still play in the 4. Whether that might be helpful because he was playing against Chris Wood, bit of a physical striker and things like that, obviously Newcastle, that'll be interesting to see. But I'm just so glad we've established that he can still play in the back 4 as long as you're not asking him to play on the halfway line and get turned every 30 seconds. That's going to be key to our season, because you could just see what was going to happen with Totti and Mosquera. It was just going to keep leaking goals, and like you say, everyone will be a bit better for that. Mosquera's got someone next to him who's going to guide him through the games. Totti as well, a bit of physical presence. You got 3 big players there off set pieces, although we've cacked him at the minute. You got 3 big players there, and you can win. You're going to be in the physical battle along with Gomez, and maybe if Andre comes in there. So plenty of good things. I would say Dawson man the match, and I thought how excellent Dawson was against Burnley as well. It's just nice to see some good old fashioned defending again. People just want to block a shot and stuff like that. None of this woke or play it from the back and all that. There's someone who's going to get his body in the way of a shot and stuff.
Well, I mean, having a real Brexit fish and chips manager didn't do Everton a lot of good, did it, this weekend, Stu?
The man can only do what he can do. I mean, to be fair, from what beforehand, I mean, obviously I didn't watch the game, but looking at those stats, Everton was superb, and then they lost their heads. And
I caught it on, the Sky thing at the end of the day.
Yeah,
no, they didn't score 4 or 5. I think through a question. I think they got to about 5 minutes left, ran out of steam, and then they couldn't stop the rock once their first goal had gone in. But they was genuinely brilliant until then. They could have had 4 or 5.
And then the Everton moan when, like Pricey said earlier in the group chat, when that third one entered and they got up in
I've never seen so many people get up in one go.
Synchronized despair. It was superb.
Well, going back to some defensive, defensive brick wall. Let's talk about Ballon Dawson for a moment. First full 90 minutes in months, and it's a great point on the banner we've got up on screen. He does the basics so effortlessly, and that's exactly right. He kind of knows when to hold them and when to fold them. When he's got to make those last-ditch challenges, he's excellent at doing that. His gamesmanship's really good as well. Went down on a couple of occasions for challenges. Was one where he almost did the Louise, and I'm surprised we didn't see a little grin on his face as his head was kind of down, hiding away, clearly counting down the time to stop the momentum of the game. From your point, Ed, Dawson in this game, for me, he is the man of the match. I put as much on the Fancast Twitter poll that came out, but firstly, to have him back into the fold and give a bit of stability to the team, but then to put in that performance as well, for me, is a shoo-in. What say you?
Yeah, I think he was the man of the match. I think that he brings that, the solidity we need at the back, because we do have two. Well, we've started the first two games with two, high wire, very aggressive centre backs that were getting caught in behind because they were what their unique selling point is. Both of them attack the ball, both of them want the ball in Mosquera and Totti, and that isn't always going to work, especially not without sort of the pivot in the midfield that we don't have, that maybe we do have now with Andre. So we needed it to add some stability to that back three / back five / back four, whatever it is that we play. But we also needed, I think, someone to just get in the way of some shots and to show whoever's around them that that you do need to put your body on the line, that sometimes it isn't just about. I mean, he sprayed a few nice passes as well, don't get me wrong. He's not sort of a Sean Dyche centre half. There's a bit more to him than that, in my opinion. But I think he was there to show leadership. Sounds like it's not doing him enough justice, and it's a bit cliche, but he was there to add that solidity, that leadership that we needed at the back, because we've got two very inexperienced, raw centre backs next to him, and I think we just needed that. And as we talked about earlier, just to stop that rot that we could have got into.
Mm-hmm. I think that's fair. And Stu, I'm going to ask you now to sing Sam Johnston's praises there, as he recorded 4 saves, including 2 big saves and efforts shot by Morgan Gibbs-White and Chris Wood, as you mentioned. The pressure, I guess, of coming in straight away. The fixture itself wasn't quite the spicy affair that we've had before, but there is pressure there as well. And to put in that performance, which kept Wolves in the game, puts him in the running for man of the match by my book as well. What say you?
Yeah, it does. I mean, Ballon Dawson is man of the match, obviously. But Sam Johnstone was... he was what more impressed me more than anything else. And I know we talked about it over and over again, but like you said, the pressure of coming in, making your debut there of all places, and having the composure on the ball with his feet, just spraying it around. A few chipped long balls as well that didn't always meet the target, but there was no moans, which was ironic. But still, he was composed. And yeah, he's not a young keeper, and he's 31, so he's in the prime of his life, I suppose you could say, for a keeper like that. But it was very impressive after that initial blip, which, if you could call a goal a blip, but after that, he was faultless. He was really, really good. Mm-hmm. And he was a lot better than I gave him credit for last week. Obviously, being in the England squad and playing for England, he's not going to be terrible, unlike Ramsdale, who had a great debut, didn't he? What a shock that was. But yeah, I thought he was excellent. After that goal, he was excellent. And I thought, well, actually, it kind of makes more sense to me now that if we are going to have young centre-backs and our version of Ledley King in Craig Dawson, who just turns up and he's brilliant, and it makes no sense why he's so good, despite being injured and old. He's a calming influence at the back, and I think that's probably what we did need when you take Sarr away from it all.
Okay, fair. I like it. There's 2 players I want to talk about now. We don't have graphics for them, and I'd love to know in the chat here, because I think they're going to be talking points this season, but I'm just not sure how. Don't know how both of these players are going to pan out. But Josh, I'm going to put the pressure on you first. My apologies, but Andre, his brief cameo in the game, he got stuck in straight away and looked an exciting player and looked to do the essentials very well. But he was in and amongst the action straight away. How much can we read into that performance for what lies for the rest of the season for the Brazilian?
Yeah, I think first impressions count, don't they? You want to see someone getting in straight away, especially midfielder. I think he's going to be big for us this season because he's not going to come in and sit on our bench. You know, I think there's a little bit of succession planning there for when Gomez goes, but I think he's not going to come and sit on our bench. For 9 games out of 10, he's going to be in that first team. I really think we'll get a 3 midfield. I think that's where Gary alludes to the playing. And challenge system a little bit. I think the club saw a big opportunity to get a player that we probably by right shouldn't really be getting, especially with the lack of centre half options that are available. And like I say, he's going to come in. He's going to be a big player for us. It'll allow Lamina to get a little bit further forward along with Gomez. I think that'll be big for us as well because I feel like Lamina's at his best when he's in that slightly more box-to-box role. I remember him a couple of years ago against Chelsea when we won 1-0 under that Nunes wonder goal. He was so good getting in amongst it rather than a bit more defensive. I think that's going to be really big for our season. So, it's a good sign. It's just what you want to see, especially someone who's coming in straight away. Bit of a shame he's got 2 weeks in Brazil now, back with the national team. But hopefully, I wouldn't be surprised to see him in against Newcastle.
I mean, Ed, I guess that was my very next question. A wonderful segue there. Does he come straight into the squad for you? Is he a player that you think, based on just what you've seen in that brief cameo, is going to not dictate Wolves' season, but he's a player that's coming with the fanfare that actually has a huge part to play in what will eventually be our success or lack thereof?
Yeah, I think a bit like what we did with the Joao Gomez signing. We obviously coveted him for a while. And just going on Josh's point there, I mean, you don't have to go too far back to think of we lost players to go and play for Wales and the Republic of Ireland. The fact that Josh has just said he's going back to play for the Brazil national team for 2 weeks, we've come on a long way. But I think I agree with Josh. I think we're going to go to a 3 midfield and hopefully Andres. I think maybe a bit like Gary did with Joao Gomez, maybe blood him slightly, a bit more infrequently, a few more substitute appearances, maybe give him 30 minutes, 25 minutes here or there the next couple of weeks, and then go from there, see if we can get that formation embedded on the training pitch and get him in that middle of the 3. And I think him with Joao Gomez slightly ahead of him, and then Lamina having this all-action role along with Cunha in front of him, and then Doyle can come in for probably any one of those 3 and fill in any of those roles. I think we've got a very good 4 central midfielders that we can pick 3 out of. I'm really, really happy with the business, and I think he has to be pivotal to our season to be anything other than 15th and comfortable.
Okay. Stu, much like Billy Joe Armstrong said, wake me up when September ends, because that's when the run of these fixtures kind of come to an end, where on paper we get into the route of fixtures where we should be picking up points plenty, theoretically. If you're Gary ONeil and you've got Andre on your hands, do you just want to get him involved come those fixtures, or would you put him in the thick of it for your Newcastles, your Villas? What are you doing with him?
I think Andre did more in his cameo than Joao Gomez has all season so far. So he's straight in the team for me. I think I'm not taking the pick. There's clearly something not quite there with Joao Gomez. Obviously, it's the new dad situation. We all know what that's like. Maybe it's just as simple as that, but he's not the same player. He's not. There's something not quite there. If he's got a slight niggle or something, I don't know. But he's not as tenacious. He's not all action pitbullness that we've seen from him so far in his Wolves career, last season especially. So I thought he was pretty poor yesterday. And then the fact that Andre's come on the pitch straight into people and he's got his own song within 1 day of being here. It's pretty impressive. I'll put him straight in the team for Newcastle, regardless. If it's him and Lamina, then plus Joao Gomez or Tommy Doyle for me, because he showed enough and there's enough fanfare about him, and there's enough. Well, like Josh said, the fact that he's here at all after other teams could have got easily bidding for him and easily paid that money for him, it's a bit of a coup for us. He's got to play.
Well, I want to come to Josh about Tommy Doyle. What do you do with a problem like Tommy Doyle? Because I think you look at him and you think there's clearly a player there. He needs time to be able to work his magic. He needs space to be able to work his magic, but he doesn't seem to get consistent minutes under Gary ONeil. And when he does, it's often not in. Well, so far this season, with 3 league games in, let's get some parity there. But what do you do with Tommy Doyle? What is he going to have the impact that most fans want him to have this season? And who do you take out? What do you do with a problem like Tommy Doyle?
It's a bit gutting, really. I love Tommy Doyle so much. He's one of my favourite players. I think you watch him against Burnley. I know it's Burnley, but you just his ability to keep moving that ball constantly. Constantly keeps moving. You think for £5 million, what a bottom we've had there, on top of getting rid of that arsehole Nunes. It was such a good deal, and he is such a fantastic player. And I remember last season when Gomez had the 3 games suspended. And West Brom away, he's just fucking class. He's such a good player. I think if Gomez, because I thought against Chelsea wasn't great, but obviously he was in a drubbing. Stu just said then Gomez not great again. I really think you maybe bring Tommy Doyle in. Gomez, he played a lot of football last season. Obviously then went to Copa America and then getting pelters off the Brazilian fans because he plays for Wolves. Pretty ironic that there was calling for Andre to come in, because he plays for Fluminense, and then now he's come to Wolves and they're going to start crying. They're going to start crying again that he plays for us. But you know what I mean? I think you bring him in. It's not going to drop Gomez. The level's not going to drop. You got a really good player there, and just I'll be really welcoming to the team, especially if it can take a bit of pressure off Gomez and going Andre through a couple of games as well. I think it's a perfect thing to do.
It's a nice problem, I suppose, for Gary ONeil to have, is that those options. But I'm not 100% convinced that he trusts him. I don't know. I think he probably needs to see more. Speaking of Gary ONeil, his comments on the point, it's a good point. It was one that you feel like you could win, but there were also moments you feel like you could lose. But it was good and an improvement. A tough place to come, a good game and fairly even and a fair result. No real surprises there from Gary ONeil. Pretty much echoes what we've said about it being a fair game. He also had some comments about penalties. He believes they both could have been penalties. If you look at where it hits on the arm compared to where it hits Chris Wood on the arm, there is a difference. Maybe he's splitting hairs because he's got a Wolves top on, Nuno's got a Forest top on. We'll have different opinions on it. Again, I mean, I don't think either was a penalty for my 2 Peneth, but he clearly, when he was infuriated in that, like we mentioned earlier, he got a yellow card. But interestingly, Ed, his comments on Sarr and Johnston, he says there is no situation really, an unsettling week, a lot going on. He had a big decision, and we decided that it was Sam today. He'll be back training once he returns from Portugal, and the idea that him and Sam will fight it out. Obviously, competition brings out the best in anyone, but Gary ONeil there, is he saving face to stop a drama, or does he truly believe, and it will be the case, that both these keepers will fight it out for their place?
No, he has to say it, doesn't he? He can't say that he's picked one and we probably couldn't ship the other one when we wanted to. He's got to say those things. He can't come out and say, we've picked up Johnston, we want a slightly more steady player at the in between the sticks. So Jose, unfortunately, thanks for all your work, but you go and find yourself somewhere new. He can't come out and say that, which is what everyone knows is where we are now. So no, I would be very surprised if Jose Sarr's on the bench at any point, because it looks as though he's kind of not been happy the way things have worked out. I know Gary ONeil there is saying there isn't a situation, but of course there is, because goalkeeper is probably the one position where there's only one jersey, isn't there? So you can't ever really be truly happy being number 2 unless you're doing a Scott Carson maybe and just picking up a paycheck, ticking a homegrown box. And Jose Sarr doesn't want to be there, does he? He wants to push to pushed to be in the Portugal squad and Portugal team more often. And maybe he's just a little bit too reckless for Gary O'Neill. Maybe he's a little bit too much of a maverick behind the back four that we have right now. And I think him plus the two centre backs we had the first two games, that was a recipe for disaster. Even though I'm a big Jose Sarr fan, I don't think it's much of an upgrade. I wouldn't have done that business personally. I think all we've done is move the deck chairs around on the Titanic. But Gary O'Neill knows more than me. So,
well, it's one of those things already. What baffles me, I can't remember exactly where I read it, but the comparison to Chelsea has already come up for Gary O'Neill with players that are having to balance kind of egos and players that are going to be playing and players that are not going to be playing, etc., which I find bizarre as a comparison because it's not like we're awash. Yes, in the midfield, maybe we're awash with choices, but further up the field and at the back, it's not necessarily the case, but, you know, it is what it is. But Stu, for you now, that Sarr versus Sam, it probably solves itself by this time next week if he moves on. But if he doesn't, let's say a deal falls through, it's not going to make him sit with the reserves and play with the reserves, is he? Do you think there's a genuine case for competition?
I think if he comes out and says at this point at 10 o'clock on Monday night he's playing his football in Saudi Arabia and then it doesn't happen, it makes everyone look stupid, doesn't it? So he's kind of got a save face. And if there is links to Portugal as well, like there's been this afternoon, then great. He goes to play, even if he goes on loan somewhere to play in the short term, and then they sort of deal out in January or next summer. He can't stay here. It's just going to be. It's bad enough the chaos when he's playing, let alone when he's not playing. And you look at him for Portugal on the bench; he's all the joker and everything like that. I can't, like I said, other than the national team, he hasn't been a number 2 anywhere. And at his age, why would he want to be? And especially at a club where he came as a number 1 and now he's been downgraded, it's a bit of a slap in the face. But if he doesn't go anywhere this time tomorrow, then I don't think he's got that much choice. He's not going to be third choice. He's not going to go on strike. So he's just going to have to sit on the bench and maybe playing a cup or something. Who knows? But it's clear that Gary O'Neill's lost faith in him. There's no point anymore, is there? Because he's not his keeper. So we just move on and kind of hope. It's sad because, like I said, I mean, I championed him for years before he even came here. I like the chaos, but that's just me. A lot of people don't. So his time's up. If he has to stay until January, so be it. But I can't see him playing again.
Yeah, I think it will. I mean, it's not ending on a sour note or anything like that. I don't think it ever got to the point from the fan base where it was like, get him out the door or anything like that. But I mean, still with the Jose could bounce back and clearly be better than Sam again, like the rest of their lives. But listen, we go from the old and we're in with the new, and we talk about the deadline week signings. The graphic on the screen there, we've got Johnson, Andre, Forbes, and I hope I don't butcher this. Mupia. If there are any Parisians in the chat that want to correct me there, I'm absolutely grateful to be told otherwise. But Wolves in the last week did get some late incomings, the late show. Obviously, Forbes wasn't signed with enough time to be registered for the game. But we have an option there. He's come on loan to Wolves. Has Forbes from Ajax, a left winger. Apart from a kind of senior centre back, I guess, which is exactly what we needed. The window, Josh, out of 10, where did you kind of lie on the window?
I think I'd like put a thing on Twitter and I said, like, for me, with the restrictions bollocks that you hear, ONeil and Hobbs have done a 10 job. I literally don't think there's any more they could have done. You know, for Fossen, it's bad. You know, we've sold our ever-present club captain for 40 million quid back in June, July. Had 2 months to replace him. Haven't replaced him. You know, I think getting Forbes off line was a big move, especially with Pedence and Chiquinho going. I think that needed to be done. I think that could prove to be a really good move, especially when you think we bid 20, I think I read we bid £20 million or something, or we inquired about him. They wanted 25 million pound for him. And then on deadline day, we've managed to get him on a loan with an option to buy for about 12 million quid. You know, I think the club's done well. Matt Hobson, likes ONeil, I think they've done really well to bring Andre here. You know, we got a centre forward in, which was key. We got Lima, who looked a really promising talent. Gomez in as well. I think he was like a bit of the Neto replacement as well. But like I say, just financial restrictions. We've made, you know, a £60 million profit this window. I think I read on the Athletic earlier. And we still got financial restrictions and all that. It's just not a good look for Fossen, and we've not replaced our centre half. But when you look, we've got Totti, Mosquera, Bueno, Dawson. You can see why they're not going to sign off, ain't you? Because they're going to go, well, hang on. You got 4 players there. Are you not happy with that?
And Alfie Pond.
Oh, yeah. You're going to be pushing the first team into
press. I mean, Forbes, he's a young man. He's born in 2004. I don't think he was even alive when the greatest FIFA soundtrack came out, which is just insane. He's, you know, it might take a bit of time for him to get involved into the first team. Ed, from your point of view, obviously Andre we've discussed, and Johnson we've discussed as well. Do you think the other two will get game time over the next kind of few games? I suppose Forbes being on loan, we need to kind of get him in and involved to assess kind of where he is really. But do you think that there's the pressure on them to get game time, or do you think Gary ONeil knows his 11 going forward, or knows his maybe 12 or 13, 14 players, and it might take a bit of time before we see them feature in a Wolves shirt?
I think there'll be wild cards off the bench, is what I'd imagine will be for the first few weeks anyway. I'm not a big Eredivisie, you know, I don't watch Eredivisie. When we'd signed him, me and my lad yesterday morning, we did the whole YouTube thing, and Forbes, he's all left foot. He's not really got any tricks, but what he is, he's fast and direct. You know, he looks like a slightly stronger, not quite as quick Pedro Neto when we first signed him. You know, he's very direct. He'll hit the ball around you rather than sort of take it through you. So he looks like he could be a danger. I wouldn't want him as an opposing for an opposing team coming on when I'm tired after 70, 75 minutes. I think that's what we'll probably use him for. Andre we've discussed, and obviously the young centre-back Bastien Mierpu, or however you say his name. Apologies to any French listeners. He's definitely one for the future, and I think you could see that coming through. So it all adds to the squad, and I think it's a much better window than I thought we were going to have. And I think the lads did a great job covering it the other night, because I think we were surprised with the business done. And I have to trust Gary ONeil and more importantly, Hobbs. I think his recruitment all in all has been better. You know, he's had more hits than misses. And I think from Fossen's point of view, the next jewel in the crown is João Gomes, isn't it? And we'll sell him for a profit, and we'll be annoyed that we've got Tommy Doyle as his replacement, and we haven't bothered to get anyone else in to cover what Tommy Doyle offered, and Boubacar Traoré will probably just remain injured for the rest of his Wolves career.
Yeah, and it seems like, unfortunately, that does seems like the natural order of things, really. So before we wrap up there, I just want to get a couple of plugs in, and I'm going to come to Stu for his international break opinions. We, as Wolves Fancast, are entering into the Wolves Content Creators Cup for a great cause, Wolves Foundation, and numerous different fan channels and organisations, radio, etc., will be taking part Saturday the 7th of September at Compton Training Ground. We'll get the links for the donation page in the description on the chat as well. Great cause. So if you can, no pressure, but if you can, it'd be great if you can donate. And up until midnight, there's free UK shipping on the Fancast store at T-Mill. So if you want to wear some Fancast merch and be loud and proud of it, that's the place to go. Some really interesting designs, unique designs on there for players alike as well. So have a quick look. You might find something you fancy, and there's free UK shipping until midnight. Stu, you can have the last word. England themselves have titillating ties against Ireland and England coming up. Are you bothered at this point after Euros, England fatigue? Where are you? You're the one, you're the flag waving so-and-so of the group. So where are you with this?
Hell yeah, I am. Yeah, obviously I'll be down in the Legion, as any proper Englishman should be, watching the Ireland game. I'm more intrigued than anything else. It was obviously going to be Lee Carsley who was going to take over. He's not interim. He's going to get the job. Everyone knows it. Stop wasting our time. But he did a great job with the under-21s. They actually won something. So, and they played good football as well. And he made Trafford look like a decent keeper. So if he can do that with them, then hope he's there. But yeah, it's annoying. Like has been said earlier, it's 3 games into the season and it's already gone for 2 weeks. But I think for us, it's going to come at the right time. So for a change, I'm quite looking forward to watching Ireland versus England on Saturday night, 5 o'clock. But if you do anything else, go and watch the Forbes video on Wolves YouTube just to see his accent. It's genius.
Excellent. We'll leave that one hanging then for the listeners. I want to say first and foremost, thank you to the Sports Social Podcast Network. Also, thank you to fcquiz.app for their continued support. Thank you, 3 fine gentlemen, for coming on the show. But more importantly, thanks to everyone listening at home, whether that be live or via podcast. Really appreciate your comments throughout the show and your support of the channel. We can't do it without you, so we really appreciate your support. So it's bye from us. Have a great week. Look after yourselves and check in on your pals. I hope you have a fantastic week and we will see you next time.
Who would be a Wolves fan, eh?